Hello and welcome to episode 11 of the Bhoycie Bus with me, Mark Kearney. Just me today. David's took this week off. He's got a lot of things going on and around the house. So I just thought we'd get back to the original format. 3 questions picked through the community page, and we'll just crack on, get these questions answered, and hopefully give you guys a wee bit of my view on things. So the first question I think we've got coming up here is from Plunge McNugget, brilliant name as ever, mate. Thanks for the question, I appreciate that. Do you think Ange will bring in a couple of Champions League quality players? Now, Plunge, it's a really good question because it's a question on every fan's lips just now because we're all waiting to see where this summer goes. You know, it's kind of like we spoke about taking the bus and we're all kind of in the same mindset where it's never, never in terms of, I think the financial situation we find ourselves in, plus the guaranteed Champions League money. It's only the second time in, I don't know, 20 years or so that we've had this guaranteed money. No qualifiers involved, so we know exactly what market we're getting into. And I think Celtic are on a fantastic financial footing. I mean, if there's ever going to be a time that Celtic should push the boat out, I think it is just now. And if I think of it as a manager who spends more money more wisely than Ange, I've no saw him because there's been a lot of money wasted at Celtic, and I think Ange hasn't wasted too much money. There's a lot of doubts about Bernabei. There's doubts about some of the guys that have come in, like McCarthy. There's doubts about some of the loan signings, but I think a lot of them were squad fillers and squad padders. Obviously, Bernabei aside, and there's question marks for me over O and Kobayashi. I think they two might come up short in terms of Celtic's progressing to the next level. I think O might have a much brighter future than Bernabei, but these players that I'm mentioning, they have to be upgraded, Plunge, and I think we all want to see Celtic go to the next level. That's not just about the financial output, but I think it does come to the stage where Celtic fans are want to see a bit of investment. We saw 4 strips come out last season. There's rumours 4 or 5 this season. Certainly going to be 4. I mean, we've even had next season's away strip on sale already. I managed to get one of them, which is great. But it's not just that. I think the Celtic fans deserve it because, well, take away the Champions League money and the season ticket money. I think we've been quite patient with this board because the money's been there for a good while now. I mean, Ange is bringing in £100 million last season. There's £50 million in the bank. There was no pressure on the board, on Celtic or the board to spend money in January. They did spend some money, but they also brought in players, sold players like Giakoumakis and Juranovic, and that brought in about circa £10 million before you add on any possible add-ons for Juranovic. So again, it's now or never for me. I do think there's areas all over the park. I mean, I heard Russell and John talking last night about a goalkeeper. I don't see the necessity for a new keeper, but I can't argue with that. I mean, there's been moments where I think, Joe Hart maybe needs to get a wee bit of challenge in for his first team place, and I think it's maybe came to the stage now where if he doesn't go next season, I think next season will be his last. I think Celtic need to upgrade that position, but if they don't, I'll be happy to see him stay because I think he's a good keeper. But I think there comes a point where you need to be honest with yourself, and I think there's an improvement for Ange to make in goalkeeping. I think there's definitely have to improve our left back position. I think centre back's going to have to be improved. I think we're going to need to possibly replace somebody in the midfield. I think one of them might go, or even 2 if we count Turnbull. And then also, I think we're all in agreement we need a new right winger and a new striker. So there's a lot of places that need investment in the squad. It just depends on what Ange sees as priorities. If he sees Celtic's season coming in 2 stages, the summer and the winter window, and plays it like that, that's fine with me as long as we secure the league and also see a bit of progression in Europe, because a lot of fans, unlike me, they want to see us progressing. To be honest with you, I want Celtic to prove me wrong. I want Celtic to come out and say, look, we've got a statement of intent here. We've brought in a higher level of player than what we've been seeing the last 15, 20 years or so. And it forced guys like me who are disinterested in Europe, forced me to be sitting at the edge of my chair or my sofa and getting interested in that game. And I really hope that Plunge that this is a season that they make people like me eat my words by saying Celtic are also lands in Europe. I really do hope that Celtic proved me wrong, and I think this manager, I think he can make the best out of any player. I mean, Greg Taylor's a perfect example. It's people wanting to be looking for an upgrade on him, which is fine, but he's a great example. But by telling a player that they're better than what they are, showing them how to play in his system and developing the guy day in, day out in training, and it works. And I think if you bring in a higher level of player, what's Ange got to do with that? A guy who's already bypassed that stage of his career and he's ready to move on to the next level. And Celtic just might well be the launch pad for the next big thing in Europe. And there's guys passed through teams in Holland, and we've seen guys like Haaland playing teams like Dortmund. Why no Celtic? Why can we not be a team that attracts somebody who's just not hit the heights of his career yet, and get them for a season or two and see where they can take us? And if that involves Celtic spending rather than £3 million, £6 million, then go for it, because the rewards are there, not only through television marketing and shirt sales, etc., but the rewards are there for the fans on the park. And let's be honest, TV money, shirt sales comes second to me if the product on the park is good. And I think every Celtic fan plunge wants to see Celtic just go for it this season. I've got severe doubts that Celtic do go out and buy a couple of Champions League quality players, because for me, Champions League quality players, I don't think that's quite an open bracket of players. You know what I mean? Players that can compete in the Champions League, possibly, because I think we've got players just now. I think Jota, Hatate, McGregor, possibly one or two others can play in the Champions League. Will they excel? No, they won't. They just won't. They're not at that level. We can bring in players like that, top end of that scale will be guys like Jota and Hatate. But why not just shoot a bit further? Just shoot for the stars and you might land on the moon, mate. And let's hope Celtic just go for it. And if that means breaking a few hearts in the fans and bringing in a better player than Kyogo, or a better player than an Abada, or a better player than, dare I say it, Hatate, then just go for it. As long as the player's better, then it's up to the player who's in the position just now to make himself better. It's not my problem if Joe Hart's not good enough for Celtic in the eyes of Ange Postecoglou. That's Joe Hart's problem. So in the same breath, it's the same for every player. If you want to play for Celtic under this manager, I think you're going to have to prove it day in, day out. There's some players that will prove themselves not good enough for Celtic, but I think that might come in the summertime. I think Ange possibly did see enough in the last couple of weeks to say that some players have had enough chances. And I remember Martin O'Neill saying when Celtic, no, it was actually Rob Douglas said that when Celtic played Inverness Cali and they beat us 1-0 away from home in the Scottish Cup, he said that Martin O'Neill came into the dressing room at full time and said to the players, because there's about 5 or 6 changes that night, he says, any use chat my door again and ask for a game for Celtic, and it'll be a last conversation we have. So I think the conversations need to be had with some Celtic players that are chatting the door or chatting a bit to get a game. You had your chances. I think some of them have shown themselves not to be good enough for Celtic, and you know what? That's their problem. Us as fans, we need to worry about the next generation of players and the next pool of players. And for me, that starts in summertime. And if a few players go who we love and want to stay forever, then so be it. I'm not getting attached to too many players just now, because I found through the years with Henrik Larsson, and I love Chris Sutton, I'm a big fan of Chris Sutton. John Hartson is one of my favourite ever players. I found that when you fall in love with players, there's only going to be one ending to that, and they break your heart. Even if they go to a team in England, or they retire or whatever, they move on, they're always going to go eventually. So I tend to just kind of love them while they're here and wish them the best when they go. So I hope that materialises in the summertime, and we'll always maybe 1 or 2 players who we love just now, but the guys replacing them will be at a higher level. And that was a good question, Plunge, and I think we're all thinking the same thing, mate. And fingers crossed that guys like me who don't believe Celtic will improve are proven wrong, because we all want that, because we're all Celtic fans. Next question is from Kieran. How do you view how Ange manages squad rotation, and is the perception Ange has his faves a deterrent to new signings? We've said this on the podcast. I mean, me and Russell have said that a few times. I feel like last season and the beginning of this season, we've seen a very, very obvious bias towards certain players. I must admit, me and David Loggs had conversations about Maeda, and I'll put my hands up. I was wrong about the guy. I think the guy has got ability. I think he's more than just a workhorse. He's definitely something about when he provides stuff to the team. But I think the last couple of months, mate, he's been mid-rotten. He set a great goal up in the League Cup semi-final, and it's a goal that only he could set up because the work rate and the anticipation is no something you can teach. He is one of the few players that could pick that up and cross it in as well as he did. So I take all that on board, but I think Celtic need to get some people need to get real here. There's players in their squad that are guaranteed starters. I also feel like I do feel like there's sometimes when Kyogo was after Boyle, he was getting starts just because he was Kyogo. And there is favourites in that squad, and I think any manager will tell you that they've got a favoured 11. And it's a fact, some people will want to tell you that Ange hasn't got a favoured 11, but I don't know one manager in football or any other sport who would tell you they haven't got a favoured starting team, because if you're working with these players week in, week out, and you don't know your best 11, there's something wrong with you, mate. So I feel like that might put some players off, but not in the same way that you heard Barkas talking, like why he was saying that you're never going to get in the team in certain positions. No, I think you've got to have confidence in your ability. You've got to be saying to yourself, all right, Kyogo, for talk's sake, he's number one at Celtic, but do I feel like I can get and challenge him? Absolutely. I don't think when we signed Giakoumakis, he came in thinking, I'm just going to sit on the bench and I'll take 20 grand a week. The reason why he left is because he stayed for a year, noticed that he wasn't getting a game, he spoke up, tried to play a game with Celtic and totally lost that argument. Celtic get rid of him. We got the money and he was playing in America, but I read earlier on he's on 1.4 million before bonus, so I'm pretty sure he's happy with that kind of money. But players that we bring in will almost always take a pay rise. And I think that, coupled with the fact that you're going to showcase yourself in Europe, England's the next step if you're good enough. Celtic got a lot of good things going for us. We're a global brand. We've got a worldwide fan base in terms of there's people watching us all over the world in different countries who will tune in week in, week out. That will include scouts. That will include different teams who will tune in to watch Celtic, and especially in Europe. So you'll be showcasing your talent to anybody who's out there looking for certain types of players. So I don't think it's going to be deter players from coming, because in my mind, if you're deterred by the challenge of coming to Celtic and facing a guy like Kyogo or facing a guy like Carter Vickers, then don't come, because I think if you're coming in and you're thinking you're not good enough, you're not going to be good enough. I think you should come in with a slight arrogance where you feel like, I'm here on merit, I'm here because I should be playing, and I feel like when I get up to the standard of what I believe I can be at, these players will be behind me. And I think if you've not got that in you a wee bit at a club at Celtic, I don't think you will make a grade, because football isn't just about talent. I think football is a mixture of talent, work rate and mentality. And if you've not got all three of them together, you're going to fall short in some way. And I think Celtic through the years have maybe had players who we felt could make it to the next level, and they've just not got there. Karamoko Dembele's been in the press this week. He's maybe one of them where he's maybe not the work rate, or maybe he's not had the physique, or maybe he's not had the temperament. I don't know, but these players just are missing something. There's just something missing there. And I think if a player is deterred to come to Celtic because they're not sure about the battle or the fight to get a Celtic jersey, I think that would say more about their mindset than it would be about Celtic's or Ange's philosophy on players. One thing I will say is squad rotation is one thing I don't think Ange is great at. I think our squad management and our in-game management isn't as top as what it could be. My reason for that is because the amount of times I've seen Celtic winning 5-0, and there's always opportunities to bring on players who are on the fringes, give them game time in case of injury, and we don't do it. And before you know it, we've got an injury to Greg Taylor, and then we're bringing in Bernabeu, who's not played in 3 months. Oh, don't get me wrong, I'd rather not say Bernabeu for 33 months, you know what I mean? But it's a bad example. But when you're bringing in players out the cold, like Ralston at Tynecastle, that was his first start in 3 months, I believe. And then you're expecting these guys to be click, 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 and play up to the level. It doesn't work that way in football, I'm afraid, especially at Celtic, where players are constantly improving week in, week out. The fitness is going downhill just now because it's the end of the season, but the fitness at Celtic is very sharp. And to come into that game that's already in motion, I think is difficult. And I think there's been opportunities this season and last season where Celtic could have made changes when the game's won. And that also gives a rest to players, but also gives players who are on the periphery a chance to come in, get a bit of game time, let Ange see how they perform at the SPFL stage. Not necessarily when games are still open and there's points to be won, but if it's 3-4-0, I don't see the harm. I believe I can play in midfield if Celtic are winning 4-0 with no cause any damage. So why not bring on a player who's maybe teetering on the edge, and let's see him. But that's a great question, Kieran. It's one that frustrates me myself, mate, and I think I answered that one. Hopefully you got the gist of my point there. Okay, that's it for Pam. How are you doing, Pam? It's always good to see you in the comments. Do you think Ange will use his connections to utilise the Australian market this transfer window? No, it's a strange one, Pam, because I must admit I seen a video the other day of Lee Griffiths scoring a goal, and I thought it was down the park. It looked like there was 13 fans there, and I think it was a string around the pitch rather than a stand. It just looked pathetic, and I'm not sure of the level in Australia, but there could be Australian internationals, like for instance Moy, who we just don't know about, who are playing over Europe or maybe in one of the bigger teams in Australia who are just maybe not being picked up yet by scouts, picked up by the TV, picked up by the usual guys on Twitter who do all the analytics and things like that. Ange's got his net cast everywhere, and maybe that could be the next market Celtic tap into. I don't care. I think if Celtic tap into any market and it improves your squad, I'm all for it. You know what I mean? There's not many players players I don't want to come to Celtic and improve the team. There's certain players that I really want to see in a Celtic jersey, but I'm open to them all coming, you know what I mean? And I think if the Australian squad can beat a World Cup and look decent and things like that, why no company that's Celtic in the SPFL? Why can they no come and improve our squad? My only issue is I think there's an arrogance towards the eastern part of the world. Like we look at some of the teams and we go, Asia and all the rest of it, and we think, they're shite. Look at the level they're playing at. But we're fed up listening to fans in England say how shite Scottish football is. We're not in a place to be arrogant. See if these guys are turning up in their own countries and their own leagues, then bring them in. Let's see them. If Ange thinks they're good enough, I don't know why these guys that says, in Ange we trust the process, because the guy's just a man. He makes mistakes, but he can spot a player. And if he thinks guys are excelling and he thinks they can come in and do a job, great, let's bring them in, Pam. And I think the Australian market might be the next untapped resource, because what we found out in Japan is, I mean, that's not going to stay untapped for long. I mean, the fact that we've managed to bring in 5 or 6 and Kobayashi and Ideguchi side, they've all looked really good. And I think if we can keep that going as long as possible before somebody else realises that there's maybe another 10, 15 gems in that country, then that's great. And the same for Australia. If Ange sees a guy in the Australian squad, then why no? You know what I mean? Especially, I think we're needing a wee bit of work still in the defence. So that really worry me if we're into the Australian market and seeing a big centre half or something. Bring them in, let's see how good they are. And you know something? The good thing about shopping in that market is you might save a bit of money, because like us, there's an arrogance towards that part of the world. And some of these clubs can't hold it for £10 million for players. They need to accept the 1 and 2s and 3 millions, like the same way we do when it comes to England, and they're undervalued. And I think that's the thing that Celtic have got going for them just now, is you've got a manager who appreciates the talent of these players, and you've also got a club in Japan, for talk's sake. I think their philosophy is, we have nurtured these players, we want to see them progress, we want to see them shine, and we'll be open to any negotiations. But it comes to a point where these guys are going to want value for money, and there's a very good test case when you look at guys like Kyogo, Maeda, Hatate, and you can see, look, these guys are going to go for probably double, treble what they were sold for. So we want to get our money's worth in the market value we're no daft, and we feel like we've been good enough to all the clubs that have been negotiating ways, but now it's time to play hardball. That might happen, and Celtic might need to look in different waters for the bigger fishes as such. So I'm hoping that can come for a market Celtic can afford. But not only that, Celtic can progress these players to a level in which we're all satisfied with, including our manager. And that's my take on that, Pam. And thanks for watching, everybody. This has been episode 11 of the Judgement Day. Next week, we'll probably get David back to do the previous format, him asking me questions and doing a wee bit of back and forth. But I don't mind doing this either. It's good to get a couple of questions and just focus on my opinion. And then next week, we'll try it again with David. And I think the fans are sure and quite enjoying that. And it's always good to have a wee chat with David. Just get a good back and forth with him. And don't forget to follow the links onto your friends, like and subscribe, and don't forget to click on the piesports.com, 12.5% for Bus 1888 and ED Pharmacy as well for all your nighttime needs. Thanks very much, guys. I've been Mark Kearney. Take care. Hail, hail.